Hello everyone. We're going to go have a little visit to one of the wonders of the world, Niagara Falls, and we're going to go a little bit through the history and all the stuff that goes around this phenomenon here. Now the natives were the first ones to enjoy the falls, and they've been coming here for hundreds of years. Even the name Niagara is actually from the now the first European visitor was a French Jesuit priest who was also traveling with La Salle, and he visited the area in 1632, and his name was Paul Regenau. And as you can see, the falls actually were further to the north when he was visiting here, and then over time water worked away and just the waterfall has been moving further south, further towards Lake Erie. Now in the 1800s, the first tourists started showing up. Well, I guess tourism starting to get more commercialized, and you can see some of them were actually pretty brave, climbing right out to the falls there. And even in the winter time, they walked all the way out. And actually, there was in 1884, I believe, there was a big accident where the ice collapsed and 3 people got killed. Now in the 1800s, also, the industrialists decided that there was a good place to build some of the sawmills and all the various factories that required a lot of water, and also set up turbines to create electricity. And that was all on the American side, and it was by the looks of it a pretty nasty scene because there was also pollution happening. And then tourism increased. You can see in the 50s we were still allowed to park along the main road, which is now all closed off. And in 1964 they decided to build the Skylon Tower, which was quite a production at the time. And of course it's a big tourist attraction, and it gives you a beautiful view. This is looking from the Skylon Tower west over Niagara Falls on the American side. Just looking at the Horseshoe Falls, looking towards Lake Erie or up the river. And this is looking north towards Lake Ontario, overlooking on the right. Well, actually you look overlooking the Rainbow Bridge. Over time there was also artists and promoters that wanted to take advantage of all the tourism, and some was to promote their skills, but also a lot of it was actually to make money. So here we have one of the earliest tightrope walkers, and there was Blondin, and he was in 1859, and he was doing this thing for about 2 years. And also there were some other artists who were doing tightrope walking, and the last one was doing it was a Nick Valenda. I think he was a British fellow, and he was doing his tightrope walk across the falls in the evening, and it was in 2012. And then there's the daredevils who wanted to profit from the falls. Now the first one, surprisingly, was a woman, Annie Edson Taylor, in 1901. She went over the falls in an oak barrel as part of a stunt in an attempt to bring her financial security. She was a school teacher, was a widow, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out that way, and so she ended up still in poverty. Then of course there's other daredevils who attempted it, and of course then there was in 1903 a baseball Hall of Famer, Ed Delahanty. He died accidentally over the falls while intoxicated. So there was some people trying to make money off it, and some people had just too much to drink. And if it's a really cold winter, you got those daredevils, ice climbers, that climb up the falls of the frozen ice, and that to me is a pretty scary undertaking. And I'm not sure how to deal with insurance and everything. There's a happy guy. He's made it to the top and live to tell. Now in the winter, the falls are quite spectacular, and of course it's quite a different effect. And also there's not many tourists there at that time. But in 1848 there was a total freeze, because in this picture there's still water flowing behind. But in 1848 apparently there was total freeze, and it was very cold that winter. Now in 1969 there was no water flowing over the American Falls, and that must have been a bit of a worry for the hydropower, because they're relying on that water. You can see where they actually have a tunnel now all the way down to Sir Adam Beck's place, where there's the turbines are for the power producing. You can visit now the old power station. Got decommissioned a few years ago after they built a tunnel. And this is the old tunnel where the water would flow out below the falls, and it's quite huge and it's very impressive. And then this is what you see when you get out the other end of the tunnel. One of the main attractions, of course, is the Made in the Mist, and here you see it coming up the river. Before this bridge was built, the Made in the Mist actually was not for tourism. It was built for delivering mail and some goods across the Niagara River. But once the bridge was built, there was no more need for that boat, so they decided to turn into a tourist boat for the tourists. Well, sometimes when the weather is just right, you get lucky and you get a rainbow in your picture. And if you get up early, you can get the sunrise or the sun just touching the clouds, or as you can see here, you're overlooking the Rainbow Bridge and the sun is rising over Lake Ontario. Now, of course, Niagara Falls is not just the falls, but there's also the towns. The city has all kinds of happening. That's where all the money is made, I guess. you get the Wax Museum, you get all kinds of activities. And the place is even busy at night. I took that picture at 10:30 at night. And of course the Ferris wheel looks amazing too, but it was a quiet spot near that waterfall. And there's food, music, entertainment, whatever you want to do, there's something to do. And if you're brave enough, you can go ziplining.
Woo, look at her go! Woo! She was the one that was nervous. Look at her now. Oh my gosh. She's just laughing her head off. She makes me want to do it. Get off. Oh, I didn't have
And if you want to get away from the crowds, you can always go up to the casino and have some fun, and maybe you get lucky and you make some money. This was a relatively new addition. Now during COVID, things calmed down a lot. There wasn't hardly any tourists because the borders were closed. So it was a great time to be checking things out. Now at night, that's when the colors come out, and it's a great time to be taking pictures. This is the American Falls, and they keep switching the colors around, so it changes all the time. This is the American Falls looking from the south, and you see Niagara Falls, the city of Niagara Falls in the US on the other side. And this is the origin of the spotlights where the lights are using to light up the falls. And here we're now setting up for the big light show, because they have fireworks happening at 10 o'clock at night. From the last weekend in May until Canadian Thanksgiving, which is first weekend in October, every night at 10 o'clock they have fireworks. Now the challenge for photographers is always trying to get some good shots, and some of it turned out well, some of it didn't turn out so well, so actually I ended up going back twice to improve. Now this is the second time, and things worked out a little better. However, I also used the second camera that was handheld, and that ended up with a whole different show. I was actually quite impressed the amount of fireworks there was, and they weren't holding back, and they do it every night, so there's considerable amount of money spent to entertain the tourists. Now this is where we get artistic. It was by default taking pictures handheld and not being able not be steady, but it turned out to be quite some interesting pictures. So hope you enjoyed a little story about the Niagara Falls, and we'll see you another time.